Plants have a powerful impact on many biotic life on Earth by providing many food and nutrients, and most importantly, oxygen. Oxygen is a colorless, odorless, and tasteless gaseous element that is essential to life.
In the process of respiration in our bodies, the oxygen is inhaled into the lungs, where a certain amount is absorbed by the red blood cells. This is then brought to cellular respiration, where the red blood cell releases the oxygen in our muscles to break down glucose and create fuel for the muscles. This fuel is called ATP.
Oxygen is also used for treating certain diseases in which the patient has difficulties inhaling air to supply the necessary amount of oxygen for the body.
But how do plants release oxygen into the atmosphere?
It is spoken that plant releases oxygen by the process of photosynthesis. By conducting an experiment, we will be able to observe oxygen being released from plants by photosynthesis firsthand. Photosynthesis is a process by which producers convert sunlight into complex organic molecules called glucose.
Cellular respiration is a process by which the energy within glucose is converted into usable cellular energy called ATP.
The experiment that we will be conducting will show that plants releases oxygen due to photosynthesis by using the element of fire to prove it. Fire is the state of burning in which substances combine chemically with oxygen from the air and provides heat and smoke. For fire to remain burning, it requires oxygen to be there at all times.
The materials that we will need to conduct the experiment are 2 large clear containers, 2 small candles, 1 small plant that could fit the container, a location with sunlight, 1 stopwatch, and 1 lighter.
If the plant is placed in an airtight container with a lit candle, then the only source of carbon dioxide for the plant to intake will be from the candle. However, due to the candle being relatively small compared to average candles, we assume that the flame of the candle would be also very small. Thus, it would cause low amounts of carbon dioxide to be emitted into the container. By the low amount of carbon dioxide being emitted, it wouldn't be enough for the plant to intake to provide a sufficient amount of oxygen, eventually causing the process of photosynthesis to stop.
This is because in order for the fire to stay burning and provide carbon dioxide for the plant to intake, it requires oxygen to be there at all times. However, due to the low amount of carbon dioxide that is being emitted, it results in a deficient amount of oxygen to keep the fire burning.
There are 6 steps in order to conduct this experiment. Step 1. Locate a flat surface near sunlight to place the plant and containers on. Step 2. Light the candles up and place them at a reasonable distance from each other, with one beside a plant. Step 3. At this point, place the containers over the candles and plants. Step 4. Once when the containers are placed on top of the plant and candles, start the stopwatch immediately. Step 5. Record the time when the fire of the candle goes out in the containers. Step 6. Repeat step 5 2 more times. The results of the photosynthesis experiment supported the hypothesis that when there is a low amount of carbon dioxide being emitted, it wouldn't be enough for the plant to intake to provide a sufficient amount of oxygen, eventually causing the process of photosynthesis to stop. However, the candle's flame in the container with no producer will go out first because there is no oxygen to keep it burning in the first place. This is proven correct because the process of photosynthesis requires carbon dioxide to be obtained, but the amount of carbon dioxide wasn't enough to generate a sufficient amount of oxygen, thus the fire will slowly go out, whereas the container with the fire and no producers will go out first because the only element in the container is carbon dioxide, and in order for the fire to remain burning, there must be oxygen. Due to the container having no oxygen, the fire will eventually burn out by time.
This was supported by the results shown in our experiment. We conducted this experiment 3 times. The first time, the fire in the container with the producer lasted 30 seconds, whereas the fire in the container with no producer lasted 19 seconds. In the second try, the container with the producer lasted 29 seconds, when the container with no producer lasted 25 seconds. In the final attempt, the container with the producer lasted 31 seconds, and the container with no producer lasted 22 seconds. This data showed and provided us the information that producers release oxygen due to the candle lasting longer than the one without the producer in its container. Overall, this experiment on showing the role of oxygen in photosynthesis succeeded. The hypothesis that was created supported our experiment thoroughly, as our logical thinking, appropriate knowledge, and research helped us determine that the candle in the container without the plant will burn out quicker due to no oxygen to keep the fire burning.
Whereas the candle in the container with the plant will burn at a much slower rate due to the plant supplying oxygen for the fire to burn and the fire providing carbon dioxide for the plant to intake, creating a cycle that will slowly come to an end. Therefore, this experiment proves that plant releases oxygen by the process of photosynthesis.